So we need to categorize everything you see the universe, and you cannot say that everything that is outside the universe, yes, in this case, because we don't know right now.
So like mechanistic things require like calibration, require somebody to bring them about, etc. So they're dependent, like the way they're functioning, they're dependent on something that configures their function.
Yeah.
It's gone to a point where it's like it really is hard to not agree that there is. But as the journey of argument, okay, we're at a point where it's hard to argue that there's no ultimate creator that's always existed.
May I ask what was the reason you asked for the free Quran, or?
Just out of interest. I like
okay. Yeah. Have you read it?
I've read bits of it before, but ages ago. I was much younger.
So I spoke to you. So your background is agnostic, atheist.
Yeah.
Similar?
Yeah, similar.
Similar. Okay.
I would say that I am so open that I don't want to ascribe myself to any words. I'm just really developing and thinking.
Yeah.
So.
Only you know what you are. We can't put a label to it. We can't put a label to it, and we cannot describe it. So that's the reason we ask, so we know from what angle to approach the discussion from, because we believe that all of us we know where we come from. For example, we know that we came from our parents, and their parents came from them. But ultimately, we ask this question, this existential question: where did all of this come from? All the matter, all the energy that you see in the universe, or in fact, where did the universe itself come from? So, I'm sure you guys must have thought about it. What is the most rational, coherent response that you have got from this?
I'm guessing we're doing cosmological argument here.
Yeah, so what did you gather from that?
I know the argument.
How does it go?
So you can't have an infinite regressing.
No, even before that. What is the first?
So everything happens has to have a cause.
Yeah, so everything that exists must have a cause. Anything that begins to exist must have a cause. Not everything that exists.
Okay.
So anything that begins to exist. We know that the universe began to exist, according to the scientific consensus, something like 13.8 billion years. Yes? So it must have a cause. Now, what do you think that cause is?
I don't know.
In your worldview, of course.
I don't know. I think it's quite a big jump to go from like a being to then like a personal God. That's.
So you think there's a being?
I'm not too sure. I think there might be. I don't think I can demonstrate if there is or isn't. So I think it'd be quite arrogant to say there isn't, because I can't say I can't prove it.
I mean, the reason we say that there is an intelligent being behind all this is because we actually see design in this universe, whether it's from the most microscopic thing to the entire universe itself.
That I do disagree with though.
Which part?
I think just because something looks like it's being designed, it doesn't necessarily.
Okay, give me an example. That you think is designed, but it's not really designed.
I think it's more to do with evolution. I think it's almost a series of accidents.
Even evolution. Take the DNA for example.
Right, sure.
Do you see design in DNA? If you've done any studies,
no.
Even high school level or your secondary level, because when you talk about DNA, you're talking about something which is consistent in all human beings.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
That's how you know the species sometimes. Even if it's completely like in an accident or something, you'd be able to identify whether that's an animal or a human being.
Correct.
Yes?
Yeah.
So how is it possible for all of this DNA, which we know is a specific code in there and a specific design in there? Yeah. How do you think it came about just randomly?
I think we got really lucky.
I think it's time.
Come on, seriously? Are you going to put it down to luck?
I think you absolutely can. Yeah.
I don't think you can have anything randomly existing which is consistent.
Everything is random.
In fact, random itself is not random.
Yeah, I know.
If you ask the people who deal with random, they'll tell you there are certain sequences in this, and hence it's not random.
But could you just take consciousness for example? I always question, well, how the hell are we conscious?
Very good question, actually. Very good question.
And my
what's the answer to that?
First answer for me is we're never going to know. So I accept that we're never going to know.
No, but you can't say we're never going to know.
No. It doesn't mean I'm not going to continuously talk about it like we are. Yeah. But for me, I would rather, with creation, for example, I accept that as humans, that we're going to have no idea of knowing.
No, but why do you say there won't be?
Accept just to not know and think and develop forever. But I will never know, and I will never say whether there is or.
Why would you say you would never know?
Because how would we?
Unless you know the future. How can you say you will never know? You don't know the future, do you? It is like me saying I've lost a ring, I will never ever find it. Maybe somebody who has the device, somebody has the tools, are able to find it if I'm not able to find it. But for you to make this assertion that you will never find an answer to such a thing is kind of problematic in itself, because then you're assuming that you know the future.
Okay, I wouldn't say that
I don't know what you meant by we, but I'm assuming human beings, right?
I wouldn't say I'm predicting the future. I'm saying that I'm making a wise decision, having looked at the history and having looked at the way the world's developed, how there are multiple religions and stories that people love to ascribe themselves. You know, we have people who love to think about what's it called, star signs and everything, which I love to think about. But that's their own narrative and story.
No, but hold on.
And there is in history.
People have spoken about consciousness. Other religions have spoken about consciousness. In fact, Islam speaks about consciousness. Today, if you go and speak to a psychologist, they will speak to you about consciousness. They'll tell you about emotions and how you actually are impacted by it. So consciousness itself, which we call the nafs, okay, it's quite broad in its understanding, but we do have a lot of information about it. Yes?
What do you think?
For example,
why are we conscious?
for example, how would you define consciousness?
I define it as an inner awakeness, an inner monologue, and an inner aliveness.
It's basically just awareness.
Sorry?
It's just awareness. So if awareness, you know, to be aware of your environment, that's if you're conscious of your environment, hence you're conscious.
That sounds like you're saying it's like a physical thing then.
No, it is not. It's not physical thing. Your consciousness is something which the scientists have no empirical evidence for. So it cannot be physical. Because if it was physical, they would have by now had the evidence for consciousness. The reason it's called the hard problem of consciousness is because you, I, and all the scientists know that we have consciousness, yet they have no empirical evidence for it.
But just because they don't have empirical evidence now doesn't mean they won't have it in the future.
Exactly my point. That's what the lady was saying, that we will never know. To make this assertion itself is problematic because you don't have the tools maybe right now. But all I'm saying is that, in fact, there's something called the philosophy of science, which does believe in consciousness, which believes in the metaphysical, yes, which can explain to you things about emotions and so on. Like I said, psychology is one of them. But science itself is something which is a study of the naturalistic world, which is beyond the scope of science to understand the metaphysical, like your consciousness.
Going back to that point previously, you're saying it's beyond the point of science to understand the metaphysical.
Different sciences. One is called the philosophy of science, the other is naturalistic science. So even science has different fields.
Okay, but the philosophy of science part just sounds like...
Like what?
I don't really...
It's much more broad than actual science, you know that.
Yeah, but how is it science though?
It is science because you cannot separate things like metaphysical.
What is the philosophy of science?
For example, things which are beyond just the naturalistic world, it takes that into account. Your emotions, for example. You cannot see your emotions in a lab or under a microscope and say, okay, this is how you're feeling now. So if I were to ask you, whom do you love more, your pet or your parents? How can you, other than yourself, how will you prove objectively to anybody else your answer? You can't.
But that's not really the philosophy of science.
It is.
You could probably
ask a psychologist, and they will be able to tell you, asking you certain questions.
If they could see your like sensory reaction to like negative things happening to your parents and your pets.
Electrochemical impulses have got nothing to do with consciousness or your emotions. A person taking drugs can show those signs. To do with that. It's just how these are mechanical things within your body. They undergo a certain change depending on certain observations within at that particular time. Like I said, it can be induced by chemicals. Do you know that?
Yeah, but I think that's like
it's got nothing to do with consciousness.
I think that's like a precursor to consciousness, though.
No, it's not.
Okay, that's different.
Is the operation of your brain through the neurons, which are physical, and how they interact at that particular time. It's got nothing to do with consciousness itself.
I disagree.
Yeah?
That's all.
I think they wouldn't call it, my friend, they wouldn't call it the hard problem.
So much better. That's getting to the point where...
No, that's psychology. So the psychologists, they ask you certain questions, and based on that, they deduce the answer that this is, yes, you love your cat more than your mom. See what I mean? So this is through inference, and there's nothing wrong in that. But that doesn't mean that they have evidence that they can observe under a microscope. So it is based on inference. See what I mean? Similarly, we can understand where the universe came from based on inference. So if I were to ask you that the universe created itself, would you believe that? Or would that even be rational?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay, it did exist at one point, and then it created itself. Think it didn't exist?
It didn't exist, and it
It created
I don't
itself.
think
Is
it
that
makes-
rational?
No, it doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
It doesn't make sense that it created itself.
Yes.
But why?
That would be like saying a mother gave birth to herself.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
appreciate
something
it.
like that,
Yeah,
similar.
I appreciate
It's an analogy. I know it's not perfect.
So taking it back to like what you think a creator is, then like what? Is
Okay, so before we jump to the creator, we need to go through certain inferences and to understand, like the Kalam cosmological argument which you talked about. The first point of that is anything that begins to exist must have a cause. Now we have already eliminated that the cause could be the universe itself. Do you agree? Because the universe didn't exist. It didn't exist in the first place. There's no way it could have caused itself. You answered the question already.
I know this goes. I know how
Yeah,
this
we've
goes,
done.
so
I've
I'll
done
let
this
you-
as
I'll let you-
well.
Okay.
Go on then.
But you answered the question for me actually, so I'm so glad. Let's work for me. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, let's say Kate. Say that we've taken that as a
Yeah,
as
that
a
is
fact.
so that is taken care of.
Yeah.
Now the other possibility where many people say is that can something come from nothing? Think before you answer. Can something, like you and me, like the universe itself, can it come from nothing? And if you want, we can go through what nothing actually means.
I know what it means, but I
How do you define absolute nothingness?
not even like a void.
Yeah.
There literally is
Yeah.
nothing.
How would you define absolute
So you
nothingness?
can't really define it.
It's not like
It's very hard
Okay,
to.
let me rephrase that question. Does nothing exist?
No.
no.
Good answer. I'm surprised you guys know this, mashallah. Let's work for me, like I said. Because many times,
Study philosophy.
alhamdulillah, many times I have to actually go through a lot of lengthy discussions
I'm sure.
just to understand, make them understand that nothing doesn't even exist. Because absolute nothingness, I would define it as absence of everything. How is that for philosophical answer? Absence
It's
of
spot on, I would say,
absence of everything that you can imagine, that you can think of, that you
It's
know.
impossible now that we're here, like that nothing
Yeah.
doesn't exist and it never.
Yeah, so it doesn't exist. So something that doesn't exist cannot bring about something that does exist. Do you agree? Something that doesn't even exist, like nothing,
Sure.
cannot bring about something that does exist, like you and me.
Okay.
Yeah? Let alone the universe. Okay, so now we have eliminated two things. The universe cannot create itself. It cannot come from nothing. Now, what is the best alternative you can give me? Because I don't want to use any terms from my theist perspective and put it in your mouth. I want you to, because you guys come from a philosophical background, give me your best shot as to what could be the cause of the universe. Do you study philosophy or you have
No, I did. I did it at A level.
A level?
Only a little bit.
Okay, yourself?
Yeah, but I did English as well.
Oh, that's good.
So
Literature
not
does help.
loads.
It does help, yeah. Shall we just say something? Let's say X. Something created the universe.
I can take that.
Yeah?
I can take that. Something.
Okay. Now give.
Thing.
Yeah, thing. It has to be. It cannot be nothing. So it must be.
To me, it
The opposite of
definitely
nothing
cannot
is
be a
something, right?
person.
Okay.
Let's say something. It cannot be nothing. It has to be something.
It definitely can't be a person.
Okay. Now we need to ask you what is a person.
A human like you.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely not a person. I agree. Okay. Do you acknowledge it has a will?
It has what?
A will.
Will.
To bring something into existence, you need a will.
I'm not sure about that.
No,
Why?
I'm not sure.
How can something happen without a will? If you're an agency, in order for you to act, you need a will to bring about that action into manifestation. In order to manifest any of your actions, as a being, you must have a will.
Okay, but we haven't established that the something that created the universe was being.
Yeah, but that's the reason I'm asking. If it has a will, then by definition it must be a being.
No, but for example, like.
So let's understand.
But does it have to have? When you say will, what
Yeah.
do you mean by will?
In order to cause something.
It's tried actively to do
No,
this.
not actively. In order to cause something, you must action it.
Okay.
Okay?
But
So if I were to move a ball,
a leaf flying through the air, that's no will.
Yeah.
It's still moving.
yeah.
I don't.
So the
think
cause of that,
something needs to have will.
no, the cause of that is the wind. Okay?
There's no will.
That's fine, but in order to,
So-
the wind didn't come from just a void, would it? Everything, like I
There's
said,
no will in wind moving.
no, I know, but
So
the
there
wind.
can be movement and
Do you think the
happening
wind? Do you think the?
without will.
Okay. Do you think the wind is self-sufficient, independent, or the wind itself is contingent on something else?
The will is the will.
The will is contingent.
Will or the wind?
Sorry. Okay. The wind. I'm getting confused myself.
The wind.
Yes.
The wind is contingent on something else.
Exactly. It has to be.
No. Yeah.
Remember the first law or the first rule of Kalam cosmology. Anything that exists, yes, or sorry, anything that begins to exist must have a cause. The wind began to exist somewhere around the globe. I'm pretty sure. Yes, doesn't matter which wind you talk about. Okay, it has a cause. So anything that and we have to go through this exercise of what caused it, and you'll come to a conclusion that anything that begins to exist is contingent. So now going back to this, the cause of the universe, which we call something, yes. Okay, before even we speak about will, let's at least say that it is not contingent. Because if it was contingent, then you'll have an infinite regress where you're going to ask, okay, what caused this? What caused X? What caused Y? What caused that? So on. See what I mean? And it's a never-ending infinite regress, which in reality doesn't exist, just like nothing. Logically speaking, you cannot have something going
We have
on.
established that. I have accepted that there is. We eliminated the first two things.
So nothing and
Nothing
universe
and
is
universe
causing.
creating itself.
Yeah.
So
And the
that's-
third thing we can eliminate is infinite regress.
And we have eliminated that.
Yeah.
There can't be an infinite regress. Yes.
Yeah.
But what we say, so there's something fine. But you're saying that something needs to have will.
Yes.
That's what I'm not sure about.
Because like I said, in order to cause something to come into existence when it didn't exist at all.
No, just say. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, sure.
But think about it this way: like, if you have all the ingredients, because when we're talking about the universe, we're talking about like a really long time, and maybe people like to say that things happen over a long period of time, and it's a mechanism. There's no need for will and all this stuff. If you think about it this way, like if you had the ingredients of a recipe in a kitchen, you just had the ingredients there with no willing agent. If you left it there for 1,000,000 years, will the recipe ever be made? So you could have all the right ingredients for a universe, for existing, all these things, right? But if you didn't have an agent with a will and willed this and took all these things and created this,
To action it, you need something or someone to
you need
action it.
somebody, an agent to do this thing. So you could tell now that
Why
this
are we saying it's somebody?
No, but
How can it
no, we are still on something.
So surely
We're still on something.
sorry,
Something.
yeah,
We are still on
something,
something. So in order, look, if anything that has a will, then automatically it is a being. Do you agree?
It's a being.
a being,
A being.
Like
It could be a human being, it could be another
okay.
being. Okay, all this, because you as a human being, you have a will.
no, but the other example that we use is, could you just chuck up a load of letters and it lands into Shakespeare or something like that, right?
No, not even.
That
yeah,
would be
I heard
magic.
this, yeah.
Where do you get that from?
No, but technically that could happen. You could.
No,
could
but
have
there
all
is
these
still a willing
ingredients.
agent. Do you see that?
Technically
No, do you
you
see
could-
the willing agent though? Like to get
Throwing
the
it up.
you're still throwing it out.
No, but
Yeah, no.
So
I
if you
appreciate
had
that.
lettuce,
You still need the raw material.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a being.
No,
No,
but,
no, it's
but
still-
when you say, look, you can't expect letters to just form a book. This is
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
No, but the being,
Theoretically, it's
but the being could be
possible
even
for the
something.
letters.
Not that. No. If
How?
you just have all those letters in pile, once something would have to throw those letters up
Yeah.
to land into.
Yeah, but do you notice how that thing? Do you notice how that thing has will, has volition?
But you could have it.
in order to
a
have-
machine that does that.
Yeah. So even if you want to say that, it's some kind of like willing agent.
the machine has to be
Okay, no,
designed. The
yes,
machine,
I
the
appreciate
machine
that.
didn't pop out of existence, does it?
No.
So we have to go. Whatever example you give, you have to know. Go back to the first law, first rule of
The machine
Kalam
doesn't have to be like
cosmological.
an actual machine. It could be something natural that has that.
Yeah, so
has
give us this-
been designed or made.
So
by a
give us
person.
this example. What is this thing? What is this natural thing which can bring about the universe? Go on. I'm waiting.
First of all, what natural thing-
I'm not making any sort of.
All I'm saying is that in order to action it,
I'm not making any a
okay,
claim there.
that's
so-
fine. In order for this natural thing to action something, it must have a will. in order to design the universe, in order to create the universe, in order to bring from nothing something, all of this requires someone, which is something, someone or something, which is a willing agent.
Okay.
Okay.
But then
So
how,
this agent is
how we go from something to someone?
Yeah,
like I said, the will. You have to. You cannot divorce the will from this agent now.
For me, I just can't compute
Show me anything that happens without it being caused. It has to have a cause.
Yeah,
And
no,
this
I
this
appreciate
causation.
that, but it's not. But lots of things aren't consciously caused, though.
No, but there must be some. Look, anything that begins to exist. Like you took the example of wind. You haven't shown me anything that does not have a cause so far. Everything has a cause.
No, I agree.
Okay, so the only thing that does not have a cause is what brought is this necessary thing, if you want to call it, something or some being, whatever you want to call it. This necessary entity, yes, has to bring about the universe, and in order to bring it about into existence, it must have a will. Yeah, just ignore this. Okay?
And the number is 9.
So what I mean?
So I got distracted a little bit there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No.
The speaker's corner, we got hackers here.
Not your fault. So what?
Okay, so in order for anything to be caused, you cannot do it without a will in order to action it.
Okay.
If you want to bring about an action, let's say you are a conscious being and you are bringing something to the world, you have your own creation, for example, or even your own baby, for example, you must have a will to do that. Yes, or something that brings about it from it didn't exist to existence.
Okay.
You cannot do it without being.
Let's say yes, because I don't.
No, but you can't just say yes. Look, if something is coming from nothing, in order to bring it into existence, there must be a will involved. You can't divorce it from.
But can you just tell me what you mean by will specifically?
Okay, means actively, consciously bringing it into existence.
No, I think you're confusing things now.
So why does this?
Which part am I confusing?
Confusing. I think you're.
How would you define will? When you're willing to do something.
Yeah, no, I'd say the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So why are you saying I'm confusing?
But lots of things happen. It's not. There's no conscious thought process.
For everything for every example you gave me, I'm pretty sure it has a cause.
But
here we have gone beyond that. We have gone beyond.
A cause doesn't mean will, though.
No, but the cause. Look, anything that has a cause, okay, then is either contingent, or it is non-contingent, like this first cause or the uncaused cause. Yes. In order for this uncaused cause to cause something, it must have a will. There's no other way around it. You show me why that is incoherent. Because what we talk about is everything in the universe that you give example, it is something which is dependent on something else. Hence, the causation is contingent and
Trying to think.
which is a good thing, as human beings, that is our best tool.
I think more of like a semantic argument here. Like the semantics is the thing that you're.
If you want to call causation semantics, that's up to you. But it's pretty scientific here, in terms of something which is contingent and something which is not contingent, not dependent on anything, self-sufficient, self-existing, has a will, has intelligence, designs everything that you see from the micro to the macro. Okay, it must have a will.
Okay, but yeah.
And why you still didn't tell me? You still didn't tell me why you disagree with it, other than just shaking your head.
Well, no, because as I said,
Can I ask a quick random question? Did the sun exist before the being?
Of course.
The sun existed.
If the universe existed, the sun is part of the universe.
Yeah.
So
I thought we went beyond that already.
No, I'm not saying what existed before the being, the something existed.
No. We are taking it one step at a time. I'm saying the universe itself didn't exist at one point, and everything that you can imagine in the universe, including all the matter, all the energy, all the galaxies, all the suns, yes, all of these are contingent. All of these, all of this is contingent on the creator, something if you want to call it, someone if you want to call it, some being or some entity.
But we can't. You know how we can't contemplate nothing.
Yes.
So what happened? What was there, or what existed before that? Then.
Yeah, we can't contemplate. I agree with
But
you.
we could understand the concept.
Yeah.
Like you could understand the words.
I can't understand the concept.
Well, let's see. So, absolute nothingness is the absence of everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So if you
so no, they already. So we already eliminated
but
nothing.
that's
That
just
means you
language.
definitely-
That's just like
No.
words that we've used. Like we
No,
don't.
it's-
We can't actually. We can't actually contemplate.
Okay, I'll give you. I'll
Just
tell you.
because
I'll give you a good.
explain
I'll give you
something
a
as
good
words.
Your
example.
ideas have to be put into words.
There's these.
Yeah, but
In order to communicate, that's the only way human beings can communicate.
Yeah, but just because we can put it into words doesn't mean.
No, no.
it's
I'll show you. I'll give you a good example in geometry. Yeah? In geometry, there's these shapes. Like I forgot what the word. Like a thousand shape polygon, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
There's names for these shapes. Yeah. We could never conceptualize. We could never think of or imagine them, basically, but we can understand them conceptually. So you can't like see or vision in your mind what a thousand shape polygon actually looks like, because we've never seen anything like it.
5 dimensions.
But we could define one. We could define one, and you could understand that this word means
Okay.
thousand shape polygon. You don't need to be able to see it to understand it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Okay,
oh,
that's
oh.
fine. Can I quickly? before
Yeah,
I forget-
sure, go on.
Okay, so okay, that makes sense to me. But then, so say there is this nothing. Then
Nothing doesn't
No,
exist.
there isn't. That's the point.
No, there is a something.
No, but before the being that you're saying, before the being created the universe,
Yeah, so there's still the
there
being.
was nothing.
No,
Oh.
there was never
So
nothing.
there was always.
No, no, wait. No,
There's
no.
always a being.
Yes.
And that's what I meant by the necessary.
There's always been
Yes.
a being.
That's why I said a necessary being, as opposed to the contingent existence, like the universe, like you and me, everything. So there has to be something always there, someone or some entity always there, which we call the necessary existence, the necessary
Why do we call
being.
it someone? Because there was no
Because I-
earth for the someone to be on.
because-
So is this someone? What is this someone? What is
It's
it?
good God. isn't it?
Yeah, I know, but what is God?
You can call- look.
energy.
To make things
No.
easier, we don't believe in God as a human being. So when we say someone, we're not talking about a human being.
So why do
We're
we
talking
attach the being's language to what you believe is God?
Because a being
That's
has
a big problem I have.
a being has to be have a will in order to do something, to action something. In this case, the universe, creating the universe. So it has to be an intelligent
But
being with a will.
The problem I've got that is I don't necessarily it has to be like a conscious, intentional thing. Then.
Why not?
Why does it have to be?
Because that.
Because
Can I tell you why?
I'm not making the
Can I
claim
tell
that.
you
I'm
why?
not saying it wasn't.
Let me
but
tell you
I'm
why.
not-
Let me
I'm
tell you
just-
why. Because if it's not an intentional and conscious cause, if it's a mechanistic, that's the only other alternative.
Sure.
If it's mechanistic,
Okay.
like you said with the AI, eternal causes have eternal effects. So what does that mean? So if there is, for example, if I turn the light switch on, there's no lag between me turning it on and the light coming on. So, because we know that existence wasn't always here, and we know that prior to existence, there was this thing, that means the cause is not a mechanistic cause. You see what I'm saying? Because mechanistic causes, there's no lag. If the cause exists, the effect necessarily exists. So if there's a being, there needs to be an effect. There needs to be a universe. But we know the universe didn't always exist, and we know for the universe to exist, there must have always been a being. So you see, there's this timing. There's a time where, or pre-time, you could say, where there was the being and no universe. That means the cause is not mechanistic. That's the problem.
I still want to know, why do you disagree with
So it has to be
conscious,
It has to be there was a point in
conscious
time
willing
where It was
agent?
an intentional agent that
Yeah.
made it come about, because it wasn't forced. I just explained like electrical currents on a circuit or anything like that. Like if there was a if the cause occurs, effect necessarily occurs. That's a mechanistic cause. But an intentional cause, like I, for example, have the ability to see, but I could delay that. I could delay sight by closing my eyes, but I could intentionally want to see by opening my eyes. See what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not following this.
Okay, just stick
You're
with
the worst.
and stick with- okay,
I
okay.
was trying.
Keep it simple, bro.
The electrical immediately everything
Can I
is
know what
working.
you're trying to prove now?
I'm just trying to show his the fact that this agent or this being or this thing has will or is an agent, it's a volition, it's
Actively
conscious.
trying to
Yes,
create.
actively trying to create. It's not some mechanism that's like dead. You know what I mean? Like a dead
I still
mechanism.
want to know from you guys, why do you think this being or this entity, say for example, cannot be conscious and willing if you know that it is going to bring this existence, including the universe, to be created? Why do you think it's not conscious or willing? So for anyone to create anything, they must have consciousness.
He's saying it could have been the other way.
No, but what's the alternative? It cannot be mechanical, because mechanical, then you must imply there must be some other matter, some other thing before the universe then. which we have no evidence for.
So like mechanistic things require like calibration, require somebody to bring them about, etc. So they're dependent, like the way they're functioning. They're dependent on something that configures their function.
Yeah.
That's one issue. Another issue that I'd say to you is the issue that I was talking about before. Mechanistic causes don't have ability to not manifest their effects.
How do you know that the being that created the universe was created by a being before that?
Oh, good. So if that, let's say that this is the case, then you wouldn't be talking about the being that would be the ultimate creator. Because the thing that is the ultimate creator that everything else relies upon
like the first
cannot.
bit.
Yes, the first exactly. It cannot, because remember the problem of infinite regress. Because if you say the thing that created the universe also had something to create, that means we're not talking about God. We're talking about
appreciate
Surely
it.
the ultimate creator has. Doesn't the ultimate creator still have an infinite?
Sorry?
No, because it's uncreated.
Let me tell you what.
Because it is uncreated, it's self-sufficient, it's
It's only
independent.
things that have began to exist
Yes.
needed cause before. And the argument is it never began to exist, it always existed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you strip it away from time, because some people like to talk about timing issues, like time.
Let's not complicate
I'm not
it.
gonna complicate it. If you just do this, if you take the sum aggregate, if you just collect all things that are dependent on other things, like the wind, like the universe, everything within the universe, all that, there's a sum. All that, because it's dependent on something else, that whole set is dependent on something else. And because everything that is dependent is inside that set, it cannot be dependent on something that is dependent also. Why? Because all dependent things are inside that set. You get what
So
I'm saying?
we need to categorize everything you see, the universe, and you cannot say that everything that is outside the universe, yes, in this case, because we don't know right now. So we are using inference here, and that's how we conclude that there must be an entity which brought about all this into existence, but then we have to give that entity attributes, because you cannot talk about any entity without attributes. And that's why we say it. In order for it to create, it must be a willing agent. To create, the ability to create, the intelligence, it must have a will. You cannot say it doesn't, because then it wouldn't make sense for it to bring into existence this universe.
Okay, so
That's the most
obviously
plausible
this
explanation.
argument has gone to a point where it's like it really is hard to not agree that there is. But as the journey of argument, okay, we're at a point where it's hard to argue that there's no ultimate creator that's always existed.
No, there is. Okay,
That's
right.
it's hard not.
That's the most plausible explanation. Yeah.
At the point we're at now.
Good.
But what I find tricky now then is like what is that being? Like, what is that? Is what? Like, because like I accept that loads of things can't be explained in our world, in our like things are so nuanced and crazy, and sometimes you can't explain things. But some things we can explain quite well, and even if we're wrong, we'll science is evolving. Like, but I've never had anyone say an explanation to me of like what scientifically, or not even scientifically, I don't care about science, but like what even is that being? Like, is it energy? What is it?
Okay, so are you asking what it is made of?
Yeah, sorry. What's it made of?
Okay.
And what does it look like?
Now you see.
And how does it will?
Yeah, so
where does the will come from? Because we know will comes from our brain normally.
No? Not really. You can be willing. So if you say your heart, for example, could be heart, could be a brain.
Willing comes from a human being.
So all of that,
animal,
all of it goes back to your consciousness. All of this, including your will. Okay, if you're conscious, only then you can willingly do something.
Okay.
Okay, if you're unconscious, if you're willing, I don't know, metaphorically, you can't do anything. So it goes back to your consciousness. And then we believe that God, because now I'm using the term God for the first time in case you didn't notice, because we have come to the conclusion that this being is intelligent, has the ability to create at least three things. And the other thing is it's uncreated, because otherwise it would be contingent. So it is a necessary being in this case, and the necessary being at least has these qualities, these minimal qualities at least. Now, when we look at the Quran, we know that this being is able to communicate with us. Okay, so it didn't just create us and then say, yes, go about your daily life as you wish. No, it is able. If God is able to create the universe, is able to communicate with us, and this is where we.
Why isn't it easier to communicate with?
Why is it? Sorry, why is it?
Why isn't it easier for us? to communicate? Why is it a question?
No,
Why is it
because
a question for us? Why are we talking about it?
Okay.
Why don't I know who they exist?
because the reason you haven't maybe looked into it, just like you got the Quran today, maybe, alhamdulillah, inshallah, you read it, and then you'll be able to answer those existential questions. You know, that differs, that's what defines us different from the deist. You studied about deism, right?
Yes.
So in deism, the God is just created everything, and then that's it. Okay, everything else is mechanical in a way. So you were saying
I was
something?
just gonna say, so
Yeah.
sister, you actually believe that you do. You're actually born with that understanding. So we believe, like as Muslims, we actually do believe that you're born believing in God. So we actually think that the reason you're saying that, oh, why is it more clear to me, or why don't I already believe, or why not? We don't think that that's a product of God. We think that simply in the Quran it says that it talks about your natural inclination. We believe in this thing called a fitrah. So your fitrah is your natural predisposition to recognize your creator, to recognize there's a higher power. Obviously, we're not saying kids from Christian families are born and they're saying, I'm Muslim. No, no, no. There's this inclination inside us. So it's like a longing, like a yearning, like a spirit, like a spiritual fulfillment that we require to connect with our creator. This is something actually that they've done studies.
Extremely subjective.
Yeah, no, no, no.
I
So that's
so
what I was
much-
just going to tell you. It's actually something that isn't subjective that they've done studies on at Oxford University. Justin Barrett has a famous study about it. Basically, they've done studies on children that come from atheistic backgrounds, from countries that are more secular and atheistic. And basically, they've seen that these children, from a young age, they have this natural inclination to recognize there's a divine higher power of some sorts. And what's interesting is he also cites the fitrah as a conception that the Muslims believe that human beings are actually born. What do we really think this is? God who created you, like He created everything else with a purpose, created you with a purpose, and left in you a signature, kind of a way to, like a signature of the Creator, is like a longing or yearning for the one who created you. But what happens is what? I want to land for your point, because your point is a good point. Why? Like it's a good question. Like why don't we have this? What happens is we're born, and this is also mentioned in the Quran. When we're born on this natural fitrah, and then what happens is our parents, change our beliefs, and obviously from beyond our parents, our socialization. So when we study in sociology, there's primary socialization, secondary socialization. Primary is your family, your home. And then secondary is when you leave the house, you get educated in. When we're in a secular, really pushes away religion. That's really capitalistic. That's materialistic. So it pushes all these things on you, and it preps you to be a 9-to-5 worker. It tells you the things that are worth pursuing in life are things that are mostly hedonistic and things that serve the capitalist interest, which is basically being a productive member of the economic part of society. So it doesn't give you value in, don't spend time like searching for your purpose or searching for whether God created you or fulfilling these spiritual answers. That has no economic benefit for the system, the capitalist system we're living in. So it pushes away these things, and you get socialized. And by the way, not just you, all of us, we all get socialized into this. And what happens is your fitrah becomes veiled. So we believe the fitrah could be unveiled and veiled, and they're clouded basically. So when you go through all of this, your fitrah gets veiled, and when you start now looking into,
I have a deep yearning in me, which is not really to do with a belief in a higher being. It's to do with like appreciation of like the amazingness of the world and life and also I'm not a 9-to-5 person. I want to like be a traveller. It's not really like I'm within this.
So you're already breaking away from your socialization in one way.
I'm within this socialization, but I know what you're talking about with this inbuilt, whatever this study has proven.
It's a natural inclination, a disposition.
I think that study, you can't really like prove
it's
it.
Not one, by the way.
All those children have been within some kind of socialization themselves. Like I used to write in my diary about God.
So I'll explain to you. So generally speaking,
or it could be your inner, natural disposition, which you didn't realize is actually making you think about. You asking these questions about and wondering about the nature around you. Actually, that itself is from the fitrah, because you're asking these existential questions. Where did all this come from?
Just 1 second. I want to see your point about 2 points. You mentioned gratefulness and appreciation, and you mentioned the point about the studies. So these studies are peer reviewed. So I don't want to get into a back and forth about like how valid it is. If they're peer reviewed, they're peer reviewed. Like that's what it is. And it's not one. There's a lot of studies, and in fact, the
sorry,
popular.
I just want to go back to what did the study try to prove again?
It's showing that generally human beings are born with a natural inclination, a natural yearning and a natural belief to recognize a creator. Like basically, what is the conclusion? And this is a lot in the psychology of religion. You can look into the psychology of religion. They have some literature on this stuff. It's basically actually atheism is not the default position. In fact, it's believing in God. Atheism is actually an acquired position, they call it in the literature. So why? Because atheism is a positive denial of something that we generally as human beings believe
If
is
someone
true.
was born just on like a desert island, never met
Yes,
another person
yes,
ever again.
yeah. They would believe in a creator.
You think, but okay, a creator or God? Or
No, because we believe God is the creator. So it's not.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But not just
If you
that.
look at all the ancient
I
civilizations,
personally don't think one would believe it.
Let me tell you how. Actually, there's a whole range of arguments in philosophy, ontological arguments, a priori arguments. There's also teleological arguments. All would work on an island. So, ontological argument, you just what's it called, from a priori principles prior to experience. Just through contemplation of concepts and things, you get to a conclusion, a rational conclusion that God exists. Teleological, teleological.
Say a priori reasoning.
A priori is pre-experience reasoning.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're on an island, you could just through what's it called, contemplation on just reason, like you try to reason your way to God through contemplation. This is something that philosophers do. There's actually like what's called
So you
discussions
think
about
that
people on islands and people on islands
have
get
an
to
a
God.
priori way of believing in?
yeah.
Yeah, of course. And
Because look, if you look at brother, just one second. If you look at all the ancient civilizations, you will say they worship something or the other. Whether it's stones, whether it's something which is a being which they don't give a form to, they always gravitate to believe or worship something. Okay, but many times, like you said, the fitra, your natural disposition is clouded, and then you might gravitate towards something incorrect, wrong, and it happens through nurture, not through nature, but through nurture, through your family, through your environment, and so on. But then let's go back to what we were talking about. Trying to eliminate everything except for this necessary being. Do you believe that there is a necessary being which brought about the universe into existence now?
Just really quick. One point, because you mentioned appreciation. Because we're trying to show you actually what we're trying to ask you to ponder on and accept is actually something you're actually yearning towards closer and closer. Because what did you say? You said, I have this appreciation. I really want to. No, I'll tell you. So, but in the Islamic conception, what we see is actually denying the Creator is the ultimate form of ingratitude. So what you're doing is the opposite. Actually, you're saying, I want to appreciate. You're looking to appreciate. So what you're doing is actually in line of what we're saying to you. Because what we're telling you is accept Islam, become a Muslim, which is what? Accept your Creator and submit to Him. This is the ultimate form. Sorry? Oh, let me...
language is also really weird.
Tell you why we say submitting. We submit, we're saying, you gave us everything. That's why it's the ultimate form of gratitude. Because we're saying, look, nothing that we have came about from ourselves. You didn't work for your eyes. You got it for free. You didn't get a receipt for your eyes. You don't have to pay for it. When you go to the doctor, doctors do stuff for you. You have to pay for it. You pay through taxes. I get the NHS here. It's free and stuff. But generally, you're still paying. You're still paying in some sort. You're taking part in society. You're paying in some sort. The point is, you have everything. Your parents, all the blessings you have in your life, this universe that you exist within. Everything that you have is from this Creator. So you submit.
What do you mean by submission? Is basically the will of your will is kind of in sync here, because He wants you to know Him and to appreciate His creation, and that's how you appreciate Him. So you might not be doing it actively, knowingly, but indirectly you are still submitting to His will, because He told you to seek Him and to search for Him by appreciating your creation. Allah says to look beyond the horizon and within yourself so that you know. Yes? Know what? Know that He exists.
I still don't understand why. What's the thing called the free throw? Sorry.
Is that?
The fitra.
Fitra.
Yes.
The natural disposition, basically.
I still don't understand how that is enough to explain why.
Oh, no, we're not saying that's enough.
I just told you that's
My question was, okay, so why don't we all, as humans, all just agree that?
I gave you the. You know why? We have these, God gives us the fitrah, but then fitrah could be clouded or it could be unveiled by what? Your socialization and what things you consume and what things you do.
Not everyone agrees or believes in God is because
Their
of
fitra has become veiled, yes, because of things they've consumed. For example, somebody who consumed a lot of even experiences. Somebody who went through horrible experiences with religious people clouded their fitra, and then they started doing, for example, very irreligious acts that also clouds your fitra. Then they consumed a lot of atheistic literature, also clouds your fitra. So basically, it's a part and parcel with living in a multicultural society where you'll meet people from all walks of life. You also will get actions. Some of them are good actions that will uncloud your fitra. Some actions are actually actions that will cloud your fitra. For example, somebody will tell you, I don't know why I can't connect or seek with God, but then they do ungodly actions. We believe that ungodly actions, of course, they cloud your fitra, and they cloud in the same way. You know the concept of numbing your conscience. Like I don't know. For example, somebody who's like trying to seek God but is killing people. Like, you see what I'm saying? So they will have.
What about a more realistic? Like, what about a more realistic example?
Somebody who's lying all the time. Somebody who's cheating people. Wealth. Somebody who's cheating on their wives. Somebody.
Okay.
Yeah. Any actions that are immoral in the sight of God, and you're doing them, but you're saying you try to seek God. This will cloud. This will numb your conscience. It will numb your fitra. It will.
I think we probably have done an over fitra.
I just try to.
So that's a good point. So basically, earlier when I said God is able to communicate with you, that is something that you need to ponder on. Because if God can create this universe, then surely He can communicate with us. And the communication, Allah says in the Quran that God sent messengers and prophets to all the nations of the world. So it's not like He has left us unguided. So the guidance for us is that Quran. And that is what we mean. If you read the Quran and you ask questions based on that, you come to the understanding that this life of ours has a purpose. Like everything we have, even your clothes, even your necklace, it has a purpose. Why do we as human beings, who are more complex than anything that you see around, not have a purpose? See what I mean? And this is what we need to align ourselves with. What is the reason we are here for? And what will happen to us? One day we all going to die. Whether you believe in God or you don't. Yes, whether you're a strong believer or you're completely the opposite, The question is this: if we die, and we know we're going to die, not if, certainly when we die, yes, the question.
You think we could still live because we don't know?
Say again?
You think we could maybe not die because we don't?
No, but
even in yeah, I know.
Before, you don't know the future.
Yeah, I know. Even scientists, trust me, even if they go future, at best they're thinking about extending your life, not making you eternal.
Right.
Because I don't think anybody wants to live eternally.
Not quite that
You know what I mean? Can you imagine that? Okay, so imagine you die, yes, and then there really is God, and there really is an afterlife, and you have to have accountability for everything that you did in this world. Yes. Now you tell me, who has taken the big risk? The ones who are for the or the one that maybe there's a God, maybe there's an afterlife, we don't know, and we'll live our life the way we want? Tell me who's taking the big risk. You see what I mean?
I'm happy to take the risk.
No, I'll tell you why you're not.
You wouldn't.
I'll tell you why.
You haven't thought it through, that's why.
I'll tell you why you're not happy to take the risk. Because what we're asking you to do is an investment, yeah? We're asking you to take a reasonable amount of your time in a finite life to actually investigate what could possibly happen to you in an infinite afterlife. See the point? So you really, as somebody who's grown up in Western society and stuff, we really care about being happy, right?
I can't wait to come back to life and be like, fuck.
No, seriously.
For you taking the risk, it's basically like you saying that I got a test in a week's time, but then I'm not going to prepare for it. I'll take my chances.
But I don't know.
That's exactly what you're doing.
And not just that, you really care about having a happy life, right? In this life. Do you care about having a happy life? Okay, so if you care about having a happy life in a finite life, imagine how much real care you have if there's an infinite afterlife.
That's a good argument. I'll think about it.
So just keep that in mind. We're not asking you to do something unreasonable. We're telling you, look, if you really care about happiness in this life, you're going to care a lot more about happiness in an afterlife. And why? We're also not. It's not arbitrary that we're telling you look into the Quran. Why? Because, like my brother said, what's called throughout history is demonstrable. We have the stories of many people in the past who came and claimed that they've had a revelation from this Creator. Now you could now try going and assessing every single civilization, but you don't need to do that. All you need to do is assess just rationally. The first person you assess is the person that came for you, who claimed to come for you. Jesus said, "I've only come for the lost sheep of Israel." Judaism is an ethno religion. You're not Israelites. The only prophet that you could look at historically that said, I've come as a mercy to mankind until the day of judgment is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he says that the final revelation is the Quran. So rationally, this is the first thing you'd investigate. So you're not saying it's arbitrary, just because we're Muslim, investigate the Quran. It's like, no, it's like, if we were in the time of Jesus, we'd be followers of Jesus. We wouldn't be Christians, though, because Christianity is something that came well after. Jesus wasn't walking around saying he was a Christian. So, same with Moses. The term Judaism came after Moses.
I think one way to shortlist, because obviously we don't have the lifetime to go and investigate every religion. So what I normally say is that shortlist the religions which claim to be monotheistic. Because if you have more than one God, you'll have problems, you'll have chaos, isn't it? Like if one God says...
yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, thanks for your time. Look into the...